Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Everyday Podcast. I'm Nicole, your host, and today we're diving into a topic that hits close to home for a lot of us: laziness.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason, your co-host. And Nicole, I feel called out already. Laziness is something I've definitely struggled with, especially on those days when Netflix just seems way more appealing than anything productive.
Oh, you're not alone, Jason. I think everyone has experienced that moment when you know you should be doing something important, but you end up saying, maybe later.
Or never. It's easy to push things off until the last minute, and then suddenly you're in a panic trying to get everything done.
Exactly. And the thing is, laziness isn't always about being lazy. It's often about feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or even afraid to take the first step.
That is right. So if you've ever felt like you're wasting time or stuck in a cycle of procrastination, don't worry. We've all been there. And in today's episode, we're going to help you break free from that cycle.
Yep, true. We'll share practical tips to overcome laziness, reclaim your time, and actually feel good about what you accomplish.
And as always, Marco will join us to explain some key vocabulary and share a story about overcoming laziness. Who knows? It's probably also your story.
Yes, who knows? And hey everyone, Marco here. You're going to love today's episode. I'll be breaking down words like procrastinate, overwhelmed, and prioritize.
That's why you should stick around. And don't forget, we've created a free PDF packed with everything about today's episode to help you practice. Make sure you check the link in the description.
All right, let's jump in. Grab your headphones, get comfortable, and let's do this.
All right, Jason, let's start with the big question. Why do we feel lazy in the first place?
Great question. Laziness can happen for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's just plain old exhaustion. Our brains and bodies need a break. Other times it's because the task feels too big or we're not sure where to start.
That's so true. And let's not forget distractions. I mean, how many times have you opened your phone to just check one thing and ended up scrolling on social media for an hour?
Oh, guilty as charged. Social media is the ultimate time waster. You start with one funny video, and before you know it, you've watched 20 cat videos and still haven't done the thing you were supposed to do.
Exactly. But here's something interesting. Laziness isn't always about being unmotivated. Sometimes it's a sign of deeper feelings, like fear of failure, self-doubt, or even perfectionism.
Perfectionism? That's a new one for me. How does that lead to laziness?
Think about it. If you feel like something has to be perfect, you might avoid starting it altogether because the pressure feels too overwhelming.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of comforting to know that laziness isn't just about being bad or lazy. It's often about emotions or habits that we can change.
Exactly. And recognizing that is the first step to overcoming it. Okay, now let's talk about solutions. Jason, what's one thing you do to snap out of a lazy mood?
For me, it's all about starting small. If I'm avoiding something big, I break it into tiny, manageable steps. For example, instead of saying, I need to clean my entire apartment, I'll just focus on one corner or one small task, like washing the dishes.
Oh, wow, that's a great strategy. Starting small takes away that overwhelming feeling, and once you get started, it's easier to keep going.
Exactly. Another thing that helps me is setting a timer. I'll tell myself, okay, just work for 10 minutes. Usually by the time the timer goes off, I'm already in the flow and want to keep going.
Oh, I love that. It's kind of like tricking your brain into action. Another tip I use is the 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes to do, I do it right away. For bigger tasks, I commit to just 2 minutes.
Oh, I've tried that. It's amazing how often those 2 minutes turn into more.
I know, right? And here's another one. Reward yourself. After finishing a task, treat yourself to something you enjoy, like a snack, a walk, or even an episode of your favorite show.
Oh yeah, I'm all about rewards. They give you something to look forward to, so work doesn't feel like a punishment.
And don't forget to create a productive environment. If your workspace is cluttered or full of distractions, it's going to be much harder to focus.
That's so true. Even just clearing my desk or turning off my phone notifications can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And one last tip, surround yourself with positive influences. Whether it's a friend, a mentor, or even an educational podcast like this one, having the right energy around you can really help. All right, Marco, it's time for your story. Bring us and our listeners to the world full of inspiration.
Absolutely, Nicole. Okay, listeners, it's story time. But before I dive in, I want to tell you that storytelling is not just entertaining. It's also a fantastic way to sharpen your reading and listening skills. As you follow along, try to visualize the scenes, understand the emotions, and pay attention to how I describe things. This will help you improve your comprehension and even expand your vocabulary. Now, let me tell you about the story of a young man named Alex. Alex was a college student, full of dreams and ambitions. But like so many of us, he struggled with one big challenge: laziness. Alex wasn't lazy because he didn't care. He cared a lot. He had big goals of becoming a writer, dreams of publishing novels, and telling stories that would inspire others. But when it came to sitting down and actually writing, something always got in the way. There was always an excuse. "I'll start tomorrow," he'd say. "I just need a little rest today." Tomorrow would come, and he'd find another reason. He needed to clean his room, organize his desk, or even scroll through his phone for inspiration. Days turned into weeks, and Alex's blank page remained blank. One day, his professor assigned the class to write a short story. It was a simple task, just 2 pages, but the deadline was only a week away. At first, Alex felt excited. This was his chance to prove he could do it. But as the week went on, his old habits kicked in. He'd sit at his desk, stare at the empty screen, and tell himself, "I'll start after lunch," or "I'll do it before bed." The night before the deadline, Alex hadn't written a single word. Panic set in. He thought about skipping the assignment, about telling his professor he was sick. But deep down, he knew that wouldn't solve anything. So, he made a choice. He told himself, "Just write 1 sentence, that's it. Just 1 sentence." That sentence turned into a paragraph. The paragraph turned into a page. He stayed up late that night, typing furiously, his ideas finally flowing. By the time he finished, he had not only completed the assignment, but written something he was truly proud of. When he turned it in the next day, his professor pulled him aside and said, "Alex, this story is fantastic. You have real talent, but imagine what you could achieve if you started earlier." Those words stuck with Alex. From that day forward, he made a promise to himself. No more waiting, no more excuses. Every day, he wrote just 1 sentence. Some days, it turned into a paragraph. Other days, a full page. Slowly but surely, Alex built a writing habit. A year later, Alex published his first short story in a magazine. He couldn't believe it. His dream was becoming a reality. And it all started with a single sentence on a night when he felt like giving up. So, listeners, let Alex's story remind you that small steps can lead to big changes. If you're struggling with laziness, don't think about conquering everything at once. Just focus on taking that first small step, and the rest will follow.
Wow, Marco, that story really hits home. It's incredible how just 1 sentence turned everything around for Alex.
Absolutely, Nicole. I think a lot of us can relate to Alex's struggle. How many times have we stared at a task and felt so overwhelmed that we didn't even start?
Exactly. But Marco's story shows how powerful it can be to focus on small steps. It's such a good reminder that even tiny actions can build momentum.
And I love that Alex didn't let the fear of starting or perfectionism stop him. He just wrote that one sentence and kept going.
Right? It's inspiring. I think I'll use that advice next time I procrastinate on a project. Just start with one small thing.
Same here. And I bet our listeners can take a lot away from that story too. If Alex can turn things around by starting small, so can we.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of moving forward, let's bring Marco again to dive into some key vocabulary words that will help our listeners. Marco, over to you.
Sure thing, Nicole. All right, listeners, let's break down a few key phrases we heard today. Procrastinate. This means delaying or avoiding something you need to do. For example, I procrastinated on my homework until the last minute. Time management. This is the skill of organizing your time effectively. For example, good time management helps you stay productive and stress-free. Overwhelmed. Feeling overwhelmed means you have too much to handle. For example, I felt overwhelmed by my long to-do list. Prioritize. This means deciding which tasks are most important. For example, I prioritized my assignments so I could finish them on time. Break the cycle. This phrase means stopping a negative pattern or habit. For example, I broke the cycle of laziness by setting small daily goals. So, listeners, try using these phrases in your daily conversations. All right, back to you guys.
Thanks, Marco. As always, those are fantastic explanations.
Yeah, super useful. Listeners, make sure to practice using these words in your own sentences to really understand them.
Well, that's all we've got for today's episode. We hope you found it helpful and inspired you to take action, no matter how small the first step might be.
And remember, beating laziness isn't about being perfect. It's about making progress, one step at a time. Even tiny changes can lead to big results over time.
That's right, Jason. Start small, stay consistent, and before you know it, you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish.
And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend who might need a little motivation too. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We'd love for you to join our community and keep learning with us. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay productive, stay positive, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.